Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you gotta ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
6 o'clock Thursday night, Eastern Standard Time. Oh, hold on. There you go. In case you don't know what that was for, you don't produce a podcast, do you? Yeah, no, Restream's got an issue with their editing stuff right now. So, yeah, whatever. So, welcome to Thursday night after hours live. Ask Chuck Bowser, RCDD, Pixie technician, former certified trainer. Your questions about cable installation, cable certification, cable design, estimation, project management, and even career path questions. I do have a career path question in the thing. Thank you. Somebody just noticed my brother Pete touch in the back and my AEM Test Pro. Yes, future show coming up on the Test Pro. Make sure you stay tuned to that. Right now, as we always start off every Thursday night live show. Right, make sure that you visit this QR code over here. That's over here. I can never do this right. Visit that QR code right there. That QR code will take you to my platform where you can access all of my platforms. You can buy me a cup of coffee. If you buy me a cup of coffee, I will send you the sticker of your choice. You can also even schedule a one-on-one time with me to ask for 15 minutes. I've got one scheduled for Monday after hours, of course, 5:15. Right? So you can schedule 15 minutes to talk with your favorite RCDD. So make sure you check out that QR code. And if you haven't already, follow me on TikTok, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, wherever that you are finding this. Now, the next step is the acronym challenge. The acronym challenge. Yes, the acronym challenge. So the acronym for today's show is the FCC. FCC. What does that stand for? The first person who tells me what FCC stands for wins a free set of stickers. The FCC wins a free set of stickers. The first person to tell me what it means. I'll give you a second answer. Oh, I got to do my usual acronym thing. Help control the acronym population. Don't forget to spay or neuter your acronyms. We already have enough. We don't need any more. We definitely don't need any more. And Mr. Kalen, you were the first person to answer that correctly. So you get a set of stickers, my friend. A complete set. You get a podcast sticker. You get a Knowledge is Power brain sticker and a Knowledge is Power sticker as well. You got it, my friend. The FCC stands for the Federal Communications Commission. The Federal Communications Commission. What do they do? The FCC basically guides and directs a lot of things in our industry. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. When we start talking about registered jacks, we'll talk about that and what they actually do. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the motivational minute. This motivational minute I actually got from a TikTok video. And when the guy went through it, it's called the 7 rules for life. The 7 rules for life. And when he got through all 7, I was like, dude, I've been living by that and I didn't even know it. So here are the 7 rules for life. Rule number 1, let it go. Let it go. Never ruin a good day by thinking about a bad day. Never let it ruin a good day. Rule number 2, ignore them. Don't listen to other people. Live a life that's empowering to you. You're the only one that you have to please. Rule number 3, give it time. Give it time, because time heals everything. Everything. And being a person of 50 plus years, I'm going to tell you right now, that is an absolute true statement. Rule number 4, don't compare. Don't compare. The only person that you should be trying to beat is the person that you were yesterday. Rule number 5, stay calm. Right? It is okay to not have everything figured out. Somebody please tell this one to my wife. She needs this one. It is okay not to have everything figured out. Know that in time, you will get there. Rule number 6, it's on you. You are the only person in charge of your happiness. Don't look for other people to make you happy. Your happiness is your responsibility. And rule number 7, life is short. Smile. Rule number 7, smile. Life is short. Right? Enjoy it while you have it. You are not guaranteed tomorrow. Okay? You are not guaranteed tomorrow. Now, before I get on with the questions, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat box. Maybe you put them in the chat box here as well. Did you catch the show that I published out on Monday? I talked to Anthony Romeo from Wise Up Podcast. He also is I can't remember his title over at Wise Components off the top of my head. We discussed how COVID is affecting the industry and where do we think this industry is going. Next week, I got a really good show coming on. Next week, Senko and Polywater and I are going to do a fiber optic roundtable on ways to minimize your risk by choosing the right products. Minimizing risk by using the right products. Right? Very cool show. I can't wait to do that one. So watch out for that one coming out on Monday. So let's get on with the questions. First question. This one comes from Matt on Instagram. Matt wants to know, does Category 6A cable have to be grounded? Does Cat 6A cable have to be grounded? Well, it depends whether it's UTP cable or STP cable. UTP is unshielded twisted pair cable. STP is shielded twisted pair cable. Cat 6A cable is available in both configurations. How do you tell if it's a shielded cable or not? Some people tell you, well, just look to see if it's got a shield, then it's shielded cable. No, it's not that simple. Not that simple. Now, a shielded cable does have a shield inside of it, but there are some UTP cables that do as well. I answered this question just a few weeks ago. There are some UTP cables that have full shields inside of them that are what's called discontinuous shielded cabling, which means there's a small break every 3 feet or so. The way that you can tell if a cable is shielded or not is look to see if it has a drain wire. It has that 9th conductor, as my good friend Kevin would say. The 9th conductor. That 9th conductor is the drain wire. If it's present, then it does have to be bonded. If there is no shielded, no drain wire, then you don't have to shield it because it's technically considered a UTP cable. Now, the difference between unshielded and shielded the difference between bonding and grounding, right? Bonding means you're making 2 pieces of metal electrically continuous. Grounding, my notes say grinding. Grounding means you're putting metal into the earth, or you're attaching to a piece of metal that's in the earth, right? So let's go to question number 2. Remember, if you have a question, put it in the chat box, okay? Question number 2. Okay, this question is from David, and David says, Chuck, my company mandates me to arrive at work 15 minutes before my start time to prepare for work. This seems wrong. What are your thoughts? They demand that he be there 15 minutes before work actually starts. Well, so my question is, do they mean be at the site so you're ready to walk on into the building and start on time? Or are they telling you to get there 15 minutes early and prepare for your work, like get your paperwork ready and get your tools ready, so that way as soon as the bell goes off, you can start punching down jacks or start running cable, right? Those are 2 different kind of things. Now, if it's to prepare for work, then it could potentially be illegal. You need to consult a lawyer, Okay, because they're basically stealing from you because they're making you work for free. If you arrive for work 15 minutes early, and then you sit in your car in your truck, and then you walk into the site at your start time, then it's a little bit more gray. Now, me personally, I would always show up early because to me, it was more stressful to be late than it was to be early. And I spent the majority of my career in the Washington, D.C. area. I lived in Maryland. Most of the companies I worked for were in Virginia. So I had to drive from Maryland, sometimes through D.C., sometimes around the Beltway, sometimes down 295 to get to Virginia to do my work. You want to talk about traffic uncertainties? On one day, it could literally take you 50 minutes to get to work. The next day, it could take you 3 hours to get to work. And same thing coming home. Same thing with weather. A little bit of rain caused traffic to back up. And I would always build a little bit extra time because I would rather be early than 15 minutes early than 1 minute late. And here's one you probably never think of typically. Bomb threat. I was going to work one day and thank God I left a little bit extra early than I normally did because they found a suspicious package on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and they shut down the bridge. I was on 295 by the White Plains water treatment plant. I could literally see the bridge and had everything shut down. Thank God I left a little bit early. I ended up only being a half hour late that day instead of, an hour and a half late. Now, let's go to question number 3. Again, don't forget to put your questions in the chat box. Question number 3. Now, for my people on TikTok, I'm sorry, you won't see the graphics. So if you want to see the graphics, go over to YouTube, go over to LinkedIn. Okay? So question number 3, this comes from Jeff in an email. Jeff says, Chuck, we have a conduit that runs about 150 feet long. Do I need a pull box? Do I need a pull box? The answer is yes. You should have a pull box every 100 feet. Now, when you talk about that pull box, let me go and pull up that graphic while I'm talking about this. Let me pull up the graphic so you can see it. The pull box graphic. There we go. There's the pull box graphic. So what you really want to do is you want to have the pull box where the cables come into the pull box. You want them to exit the pull box directly across from each other in a straight line from each other, right? They should be lined up. The pull box should never be used for a change of direction. So here on the graphic, you'll see the good where it comes in on one side, goes out the other side, align with each other. But when you see the two bads, one comes in, the top one that comes in from the left, then it goes out the top. Well, that's a change of direction. On the bottom bad one, it comes in the back and then it goes out the side. Again, that's a change of direction. That's not what you're supposed to be doing with a pull box, right? If the pull box is above a grid, like a suspended ceiling, like a block tile ceiling or drop tile ceiling, make sure you put some kind of a label on that tile so that way you can tell people, look, there's a pull box above this. Now it could be a label from like a Brother P Touch label, like I got back there. It could be anything. Just label that tile. So let's talk about choosing the right pull box. Choosing the right pull box. Let me go ahead and remove this graphic now. We don't need that graphic anymore. It's choosing the right size pull box. So you want to make sure that when you choose the right pull box, that's going to be big enough so you can pull cable into the box. Right? There's got to be enough room to loop the cable. Right? Keep in mind, what is the minimum bend radius for that cable? To know that, you need to know the dimension of the cable. If it's fiber, it's 20 times the outside diameter while you're pulling it, 10 times while it's at rest. If it's 4-pair cable, it's 4 times the outside diameter. Right? So I need to know how big of a loop you're going to need for that. And the length of the pull box, the length should be 16 times the diameter of the largest conduit that feeds into the pull box. 16 times the largest conduit that feeds into the pull box. So if you got a 4-inch conduit going into it, 4 times 16 will tell you what the length of that pull box needs to be. Right. Now, if you have cables that are going to have big backbone cables or a lot of work area outlets, then you might want to go larger than that 16 times the largest conduit recommendation. When we talk about the width of the pull box, you need to make sure that that width is enough so you can pull that cable, so you can fish through that pull box, so you can loop that cable. Remember, we just talked about the bend radiuses. You don't want to exceed those bend radiuses. So those are the tips that you need to know about pool boxes. Let's go to the next question. Again, if you have a question, make sure you put it in the chat box on TikTok. Put it in the chat box here. Now, this one comes from Stefan from SpeakPipe. SpeakPipe. For those who don't know what SpeakPipe is, if you go to my webpage, letstalkcabling.com, there's a spot over there where you can actually record an audio message and send me a voicemail through the internet. That's what SpeakPipe is, right? So his question is, does a telecom room with a ceiling grid or tile meet code and or standards? Codes and or standards. Well, the code doesn't really tell us, and I don't remember off the top of my head if the standards do or not. So I went to the TDMM for my reference, the Telecom Distributions Methods Manual. So the TDMM will tell you that, first off, you need to understand two words before I give this explanation. Should and shall. Should and shall. If you see the word shall, that means it's a requirement. You have to do it. If you see the word should, it's a recommendation, meaning you should consider doing it that way. So according to the Telecom Distributions Methods Manual, the 14th edition, Knucklehead Draggers, I love your channel, buddy. Love your channel. I ride too. I have an Ultra Classic. Going back to my thing here. So the TDMM tells us that, yes, if it does have a suspended ceiling, then that suspended ceiling should be higher than where the cables come into that telecom room. The suspended ceiling has to be higher than where the cables come into the telecom room. Okay? That's what this TDMM says. But the TDMM, when it says that, it says it should be above it. Should. Remember I just said should and shall. They have different meanings. Should and shall have different meanings. So they recommend that it does that. I have done ceilings before. I've done works where the suspended ceiling was below where the cables came in. Now, in my opinion, in that kind of a scenario, the best practice is to go ahead and take a piece of a pipe, like a 2-inch pipe, a 4-inch pipe, bolt it to the wall with like a piece of Kindorf or something, and then make a hole in the ceiling tile, have that conduit come through the ceiling tile, and then run your cables through that sleeve. Okay. What that does for you is does a couple things. Number one is it's going to make sure that those tiles don't get damaged, right? That they don't get damaged as you do moves, adds, changes. And it also gives you the ability to seal that pipe, to keep odors from coming out of the ceiling into the room, to keep rodents from crawling out of the ceiling into the room. So that's my suggestion for you for that. All right. Now let's go to question number 5. Lee is in the house. Lee says, for under slab data drops that have conduit that's stubbed up above the ceiling, is OSP cable required technically since underground cable could have moisture? Oh God, that's a great question. Great question, Lee. So what Lee's talking about, the NEC defines this as a wet location. A wet location is described as slab on grade construction. Slab on grade construction. So what they did is they poured a concrete slab right on the ground. And then if you have a drop out in the middle of the room somewhere, if you run a conduit to it, it's inside the concrete. Now, when it rains outside, we live in Florida, we get lots of rain. For you people who live up north, you get snow. When snow melts, the ground gets wet. The concrete absorbs that moisture from the earth. In some parts in the Southwest where they have a hard time getting a good ground connection, they have these things called concrete encased electrodes. They'll take a grounding electrode, put it in the concrete, let that cure and bury that whole assembly in the earth, because that concrete absorbs what little moisture there is to give it a better connection to the earth. Now, here's where all the confusion comes from, Lee. Codes or standards, right? Codes or standards. That's what it really, really does, right? So codes, they really exempt us from this because this is not a safety issue. This is a performance issue. As a responsible installer, responsible designer, I'm going to tell you, you better consider that a wet location, and you might want to use some type of a flooded cable or outside plant cable. Now, when it comes out of that conduit in the ceiling, within 50 feet of it coming out of the ceiling, then you got to transition over to that listed or that the plenum or riser rated cabling? Okay. Good question, Lee. Good question. Somebody on TikTok goes, what companies have I worked for? Let me see. I've worked for Custom Computer Cable in Virginia, Hinkles and McCoy in lots of offices, lots of places, TCI in Springfield, Virginia. I've worked for a company over in Orlando. The name of them is escaping me at the moment. And worked for a couple other small companies as well, too. But now I work for a manufacturer. And I don't say who the manufacturer is because I don't want them to have any influence on the show, because I want my show to be my opinion, not their opinions. Right. So question number 5. Let's put up that up. Question number 5. Bum, bum, bum. There we go. Now, this must have been a newer person asking this, because they said, Chuck, what is an Aphc and how is it different from an RJ45? What is an Aphc and how is it different from an RJ45? So I made another graphic. Right. So you work for IES. Somebody on TikTok just said they work for IES as QA, QC, and training. I'm very familiar with IES. I am, because my company works with your company. So an Aphc describes AP. The P stands for positions. The C stands for contact. So when you look at the top graphic, you see there's 8 gold pins. So there's 8 positions. Okay. And each one of those positions has a gold pin. So that's 8 contacts. Typically, your Aphcs are used for data communications, patch cords, equipment cords, and stuff like that. You might hear some people like me, some old people like me, technically refer to them as an RJ45, but that's not really what they are. But that's just kind of what we call them. You can even find a 8P6C, where it'll have 8 positions, but only 6 contacts. Okay, you can find that as well. The middle diagram is showing us a 6P6C, 6P6C. 6 position, 6 contact. Typically, this is used for your telephone and your modem line cords, right? You might even hear them referred to as RJ11, RJ12s, right? If I remember right, it's been a while since I've had to do this. I think RJ12, the difference between RJ11 and RJ12, one is shielded. I think the RJ12 is shielded and the RJ11 is not, if I remember correctly. And then on the bottom one, which you can't see because the graphic is on, let me turn off that graphic so you can see it, is a 4P4C, 4 position, 4 contacts. This is typically used for your handset connector, the cable that goes from the device that you hold next to your head to the phone mounted on the wall. 4P4C. Now, while we're talking about connectors, what are these things really used for, right? So this basically just gives you a way to easily connect and disconnect a cord. And that way, when it plugs it in, so actually the modular end's a male connector, and then the connector or the port that plugs into is called a female connector. And it's got a locking mechanism. So that way, when you plug it in, it locks it in, right? It locks it in. Now, when you talk about, before you go, angry eyes, right? Trivia question. And whoever answers this one right, I will also send you a set of stickers. I will send you a set of stickers. Okay, if you answer this right. When you talk about a patch cord, I happen to have one sitting here. You know, one cycle is considered when you plug a connector in and then you disconnect it. That's considered one cycle. Okay, that's one cycle. How many cycles is this patch cord rated to? How many cycles is this patch cord rated to? Put your answer in the chat box. First person to answer correctly will get a set of stickers. How many cycles is a modular connector rated to? Yes. Let's see if anybody knows. Somebody says 100,000. Nope, it's not 100,000. Not 100,000. Right? So there's actually 2 ratings. There's a PL1 rating and a PL2 rating. A PL1 rating means that you can make that connector 750 times. 750 times. Most of your telecommunications patch cords and stuff are rated PL1. There's another rating called a PL2. PL2 means that patch cord is rated to 2,500 insertions. 2,500 insertions. Okay. That's a better quality. And the reason that's called mean time between failure rate, MTBF. You hear that quite often as well. So that was the last question I had submitted ahead of time. Let me check the chat line here, see if anybody's asking any other questions in here. Nope, nobody's asking any questions there. Let me check the chat box up here, see if anybody's asking any questions up here. Somebody wants to know, where is my I Ppe? What they're referring to, obviously that person is a regular user. They're talking about my safety glasses, right? Because these are actually ZL1 rated, so they're real safety and they're dirty as all can be. I got to clean them up, right? So they're actually rated to be safety glasses, but they're also magnifiers. So I use them as my reading glasses as well too. So there you go. So somebody, 13 Serpents, another common follower. I see he comments on my YouTube videos a lot. He says traveler cables. Traveler cables. I don't know what your question is there, 13 Serpents. And somebody on TikTok says that they hear my dogs in the background. Yeah, they're in the other room. They're roughhousing a little bit. Mama normally has the remote controls to take care of them, but they happen to be in here with me. So that's why you can hear them. So I can't blame them. So I don't know what you want to know about the traveler cables, 13 Serpents. So if you could revise that and let me know what is it you want to know about them. Okay. All righty. 1 or 2 more minutes. See if anybody. Oh, I forgot to do. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? George, why didn't you tell me? What are you drinking? Remember, it's After Hours Live. So I'm drinking root beer Zevia. Root beer Zevia, right? I know you think, Chuck, that looks like water. It's not. It's Zevia soda. Zevia soda. Tastes like soda. No calories, no sugar. I love it. Alrighty, so 13 Serpent says, talking about traveler cables, I always have trouble getting cameras to work in elevators. Gotcha. What kind of issues are you having? Are you having issues because of a milkshake? Wise Components, thank you for being shown up. We just did an interview with Wise Components last Monday. Make sure you go check it out. He has some good food recommendations, by the way. The thing with cables in elevator shafts is they're very susceptible to EMI, and as you mentioned, they're traveler cables. So they get coiled up, they get uncoiled, they get coiled up, they get uncoiled, and that causes damage to the cable over a period of time. So that can cause you problems, a lot of problems actually. There are cables rated for that, and sometimes I wouldn't put cable inside of flex because that could pinch the cable and damage the cable. But there are other mechanisms that they have for you as well. So I'll have to do some research on it because I am not real familiar with traveler cables. You know what I'll do is I'll put that question out there in the Low Voltage Nation group on Facebook and see if anybody else has experience with that. Okay, and see what they happen to say. Right. So here somebody says, you're better off in an elevator if you can get them to install coax traveler than try to convert to IP. Thank you, Daryl. Yes, coax cable is a lot more resilient. Coax cable does have the additional shield, which gives you protection from EMI. So that's great input. Thank you, Daryl. I appreciate that. So, all righty. I got 1 more minute. Let's see what 13 Serpents kind of said behind that. Checking TikTok feed. Are service loops bad? Okay, service loops. Service loops are always a great idea. Always a great idea. But there are some things you got to watch out for, right? Number 1, stay away from doing those tight little coils. That creates an inductive loop, and that's going to cause you problems. So you want to do an extended loop or a figure 8. Those are always going to be your preferences. Another thing about loops is you need to make sure that you know how much slack was left in the bid by the estimator. If the estimator only leaving 10 feet of slack and you're leaving 50 feet of slack, you're going to run out of cable before you run out of drops. And then what's going to happen is you're going to call your project manager, boss, I need more cable. And what's the project manager going to say? Well, you have all the cable. Why do you need more? Right? That's what he's going to say. And then you're going to say, well, the estimator didn't give me enough cable. Is that what really happened? No. So understand how much slack was left in the job before you start leaving slack, so you don't leave too much. And also pay attention to the length of your runs, because if you got some runs that are 280, 285, 290, 295 feet already, and you're leaving a 10-foot slack loop, your cables are now going to be too long. Too long. And then another thing about slack loops. What kind of cable is it? Is it Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a? Cat 6a can weigh up to as much as twice as much as 5e. 1,000 feet of 5e weighs about 19 pounds, give or take. Depends on whose it is and what components it has with it. Cat 6a can weigh up to as much as 40 pounds per 1,000 feet. So that means you might have to use the red shot in your paddle actuated tool to hold those cables up. So there's a lot of things that can go on with slack. A lot of things. As a matter of fact, off the top of my head, you're supposed to leave 10 feet of slack in the telecom room, 1 foot of slack in the box for copper cabling, 1 to 3 feet in the box for fiber cabling. And in the telecom room, fiber, you're supposed to go, leave enough slack to go down to the furthest corner, and then an additional 10 feet on top of that. Okay. So the key is, don't be afraid to ask the estimator how much slack was left in that job, right? Matter of fact, you should be having a kickoff meeting, right? Whoever estimated the job should be having a meeting with you, and you can ask those kinds of things. How much slack did you leave in the job? Where are the racks going to go? Because that's generally why we leave a lot of slack, because we want to make sure we have enough cable. It's better to be 13 feet too long than 1 inch too short when it comes to routing cable, right? It truly is. So there you go. Slack. All right, we're at 6:32, so I'm 2 minutes past my thing. 13 sermons. I see your other message there, and I'm going to do some research on it, and I'm going to try to find some answers for you, my friend. Okay. Wise components. If you're still on, if you know anything about travel cables for elevators, let's talk. Let's get this guy some information. As a matter of fact, let me take a picture of that screen, so that way I've got that question later on. All righty. Until next Thursday night, everybody, remember, knowledge is power.